Humid summer air stagnated in the classroom after school. If you looked out the window, you would be able to tell it would soon be evening, but intense rays of light continued to beat down. "Yo, let's head home," Sato Yolta called out to me as I was packing my stuff up. "Yeah, where's Murai?" "He got called to the teacher's room. He apparently forgot to hand in his report today." "Why? Do you need him for something?" Nishio Masahito was the one who replied. Sato Yolta, Nishio Masahito, and Murai Kenji. I always hung out with these three. "Yeah, I wanted to give this back." I showed the two of them the videotape I borrowed from Murai. "You sure do have a lot of interests, huh?" Yolta said, grabbing the tape from my hand and staring at it. "Aren't you a little old to be watching anime?" "I should be the one saying that to you with how you carry on about ghosts and curses." Nishio snorted when he heard that. "What?" Yolta lashed out at Nishio in indignant rage. "You were the one watching ghost videos the other day like they were real too." "Ah, that," Nishio said simply. Seeing that Nishio was unperturbed, Yolta turned to me instead. "That was the real thing. You think so too, don't you?" "Yeah, you're right." Yeah, you're right." I nodded before I could stop myself. It really was well made, like a documentary. Having received my support, Yolta turned to Nishio like, "See?" But Nishio responded as coolly as always. "I told you, it was just a trick." Pfft, if you keep making fun of ghosts like that, you're gonna get cursed someday. Nothing ever upset Nishio, so Yolta pressed him again. "I'm not gonna get cursed. And I'm not making fun either. Generally." Nishio stabbed Yolta with his finger. "Things such as curses don't exist anyway, you know? They're all just lies made to frighten scaredy cats like Murai. They're superstitions." "So, that thing you showed us the other day." Neither of them intended to listen to what the other had to say, so their debate showed no signs of ending and kept heating up. If this kept going, things would get out of control. At a glance, they looked like two people who hated each other, but it was because of this that they got along so well. The world really was a strange place. Ow! A pain suddenly shot through my back as I was watching them. "Yes, hello, you're in the way. Don't just stand there, move." The complaint followed instantly. I turned around and saw a familiar face holding her bag. It was Miike Kana, my childhood friend. She could have just asked me to move, but when I looked at the bag she deliberately hit me with, it seemed she still held a grudge for the CDs I borrowed and then lost. "What? Are you still angry or something?" "Getting angry isn't good for your health." "Getting angry isn't good for your health. What proof do you have of that? And you're always the one who's making me angry." "That was true." It's no good. You've hurt me even more. We'll never be able to recover from this." Kana sadly put a hand to her heart. "Is that so? My bad, I'm sorry." "Is that so? My bad, I'm sorry." What? If you apologize so sincerely, I might let it go to my head." Kana's face went a little red. What can I ever do to make you forgive me? Don't worry about it. Looks like you've repented already. I really am sorry. I put my hands together in prayer in front of her. Well, since you've apologized so sincerely, I'll give you this in reward. She coughed and then took a videotape out of her bag. It was a video of a band that Kana and I had long been fans of. Eh? Really? But in exchange, you better watch it quickly. Other people want to see it too. Kana handed me the tape and then disappeared down the hall, just like that. She was so fast. She really was the shining hope of the track team. Now that is nice. At some point, the others had finished their argument and Yota stared down the hall after Kana, a lewd look on his face. That is nice. No way. No way. Did he actually? Look, let me give you a piece of advice. Don't. When he heard that, Yota side-eyed me. Jealous? Idiot. My cheeks burned. The fact you took it so seriously and refuted me is very suspicious. Hey! Keep on at it, you two, Nishio said with a bored look on his face as he watched us. I better head to club before I get a headache. Ah, yeah. I'll see you tomorrow. We said our goodbyes, and then Nishio took off for his club room in the same direction as Kana. How could he say he doesn't understand what's so good about her? Yota tilted his head as he watched Nishio go. He didn't say that. Hang on, he never said that. What he didn't understand was Yota's particular interests, not what was so good about Kana. Huh. Wait, do you really? Yota grinned. No, you idiot. I didn't say a thing. You... At that very moment... An ear-splitting scream suddenly ripped through the school. For a moment, the building, full of life, suddenly froze. What was that? Yota nervously turned to look at me. Let's check it out. The scream seemed to come from a classroom just ahead of us. Several people were already running over to see what was wrong. I peeked into the room. Stay away! Suddenly the crowd parted and someone came running out. Whoa! I got knocked to the ground. It was a terrified girl. The girl fell over on top of me. Help me! Tears formed in the girl's eyes and her feeble voice desperately sought my help. What the hell? How did she want me to help her? I slowly looked up, but... there was nothing there. There was nothing behind her, meaning in front of me, that could frighten her so. But still she trembled on top of me, as though something was coming for her. Nobody reacted to her strange behavior. They simply watched and waited to see what would happen. The girl screamed at the top of her lungs again. Her fingers dug painfully into my arm. Her shrill scream, echoing in my ears, sent a chill down my spine. The girl turned around and then covered her face with her hands as though protecting herself from something. Then, after she let out what sounded like a sigh, a tremor ran through her body, and then she dropped on top of me, like a doll with its strings cut. I broke out in goosebumps and a cold sweat all over. I have to help her. "Hey, are you okay?" I nervously called out to her, but she didn't respond. I grabbed her shoulders and lightly shook her. She fell limp. Her head rolled around, lifeless. Foam bubbled out of her open mouth, and her eyes, blank and wide open, stared at me. I found myself drawn and unable to tear my eyes away from her expression, warped with fear. "Hey, what's wrong?" Someone must have alerted them because a teacher came running to the classroom and picked the girl up off me. Nobody moved. Everyone stared at the fallen girl in the suffocating silence. The teacher gulped. Various people let out small screams and sighs, and then, "Someone call an ambulance!" Those words snapped everyone into action. I stood up on trembling legs as people cried and screamed. The cursed tape. I managed to catch those words in all the uproar. Eh? Yolta stood frozen on the spot, looking at me. "A cursed tape?" I repeated before I could stop myself. "What the heck is that?" "What the heck is that?" "It's just a rumor. Once you watch it, you'll die exactly 1 week later." 1 week later. Yolta's face was pale. When he spoke of such occult matters, even if he told them seriously, they always sounded like a bit of a joke, but this time it didn't seem that way at all. What on earth had she been so frightened of? The ambulance finally arrived, and she was rushed to the hospital. The classroom remained silent for a short while after that, but one by one, the other students started to leave, until, next thing I knew, I was the only one left. I could hear the tiny voices of students taking part in club activities out in the schoolyard. Everything felt numb, perhaps because I'd just seen someone die right in front of me, and it all felt like a dream. But the marks of her fingers on my arm reminded me that it had all really happened. I returned to my apartment alone and was greeted by a hot, humid room when I opened the door. I turned the air conditioner on and took some water out of the fridge. There was a single missed call on the answering machine. It was from my parents at their new place of work. They just wanted to check in and see if I was doing well. I understood that they were worried about me, being their only son, but I wanted them to trust me a little more as well. I turned the computer on after that to check a few things. Nishio had picked all the latest parts out for me, including the video capture, and I remembered him looking enviously at it. Oh, I saw there was an email from Nishio. I found an interesting video, so check it out. Ever since I got this computer, Nishio would occasionally send me emails like this, with videos attached. Nobody else had the internet at the time, so he was probably just happy to make a friend. I threw myself down on the bed once I was done checking my emails. Once everything calmed down, I thought back over the day. Something still felt wrong. Before long, the air conditioner started to kick in. Maybe I should watch a movie or something. I thought I should finish watching the videos I got from Murai. There were 6 in total, and I'd only seen half of them. Come to think of it, I had to watch the video clip I borrowed off Kana too. There were so many things to watch. It wasn't like I hated watching videos, but I had borrowed too much at once. At times like this, I was grateful to my father for putting another video player in the living room. I ate dinner as I watched. Before long, the day's events faded into my memories. Thursday. The events of the day before had surprisingly not spread very far, perhaps because it took place after school. But that was just the morning, and by afternoon, it had become a hot topic all over school. The student who died was Yokoi Kyoko, a girl in the same grade as me, and the cause of death was a heart attack. But despite that, all sorts of rumors started to spread about how she really died. Illness, drugs, suspicious friends. There were all sorts of rumors. Yota kept going on about how it was a curse, and hearing that, Murai screamed. Nishio was the only one who didn't care for any of the rumors, and simply typed away at his laptop. Hey! Ow! Something suddenly hit my head. Naturally, Kana stood behind me, and it was her that hit me with a chop from her hand. What the hell? How was that video clip yesterday? Crap. Honestly, I was so wrapped up in Murai's videos that I hadn't watched that one yet. Sorry, I haven't watched it yet. When she heard that, her face dropped. Seriously, why do I even lend things to you? Well, there are other people who want to see it, so... Yeah, all right. I'll watch it today. Make sure you do. And just like that, the day was over and school ended. People still whispered about Yokoi Kyoko and what really happened to her even after school. When I opened the door to my apartment, a humid room greeted me. I immediately turned the air conditioner on and took a shower to get rid of the sweat. When I got out of the shower, the room sat at a comfortable temperature. I turned the video player on right away. I took a single tape out of the mountain of them, put it in the deck, and then threw myself on the bed. The video started to play. I stared blankly at it as I lay in bed. As I watched it absent-mindedly, finally the end credits rolled. I rewound the tape and then put a new one in. How many times did I carry out those same actions? I put yet another new video in. I opened my eyes. Where was I? I slowly felt around with my hands. The sheets beneath me were soaked in sweat. I was lying in bed in my apartment. Did my own screams wake me up? And what was that just now? A dream. The video I was watching before I fell asleep was still on the TV. It was completely different to what I had just seen moments earlier. So then, it really was a dream? But the sensation of falling, the smell of that hole, and the baby's face, it all felt so real. Sweat dripped from my forehead. I was drenched in it. My throat felt oddly dry. I took a bottle of water out of the fridge and took a drink. I looked at the clock and it was almost 2 a.m. Taking a second and then a third drink from the bottle, I remembered what Yolta had said. Yeah, about that cursed video. Didn't he say something about it? I searched my memories for what he said. Once you watch it, you'll die exactly 1 week later. That was the same as the end of my dream. But I didn't watch any video. If the dream and video images were the same, there was no way I'd forget. Or did I watch it without realizing it? What was I panicking over? Suddenly I smiled. It had to be because of Yokoi Kyoko's strange death and the talk of the cursed video. I'd been hearing nothing but strange rumors. When I finished all the water, I lay back down in bed. But still, I couldn't sleep. When I looked over at my desk, I saw the light was on, signifying that I had a new email. It was from Nishio. It wasn't about anything special, but just seeing it made me feel better. I should forget all about that curse. I barely believed it anyway, but I also didn't want to face that terror either. But I still couldn't stop thinking about it. After that, I fell asleep. Friday. Morning. What an awful way to wake up. I felt like crap. I quickly got ready and left my apartment earlier than usual. That person was the only one I could speak to about this. Morning! A cheerful voice called out behind me as soon as I got to school. It was Kana. She wasn't in uniform, so she must have been in the middle of morning practice. You're here early today, aren't you? Yeah, I was awake for some reason. Ew, you sound like an old person. You don't exercise, so your body is aging like one too. Kana laughed. She was always like this. Always. I felt some of the weight lifted from my shoulders, just a little. Oh yeah, did you watch the video? As I was thinking, Kana asked me suddenly with hopeful eyes. Yeah, I did. It was great. I took the tape out of my bag and handed it to her. Hey, Kana, have you heard the stories about that curse? I asked her as I handed the video over. Curse? She looked surprised at the sudden question, but then her face quickly became fed up. What's that all about? Are you trying to be the next Sato Yolta as well now? But still, she looked at my face and answered seriously. By curse, you mean that cursed video, right? I don't know the full details, but apparently that same story is going around other schools too. It was at other schools too? I wonder if that video really exists. I could tell my own voice was shaking. Did you really watch it? She looked at me with a serious expression on her face as she stood there. Of course not. It's just Yolta was making such a fuss about it, so I was wondering, that's all. I spat out quickly. Kana answered in a low tone. Okay then. Crap, I have to get ready. Sorry for keeping you. No, it's fine. Well, see ya. Kana ran away. She stopped once on the way to look back at me. I waved at her. When I arrived at the classroom, I was covered in sweat. Yo. Yeah. Morning. When I went in, Yolta, Nishio, and even Murai were already there. Who on earth should I tell about that dream, and what should I even say? As I debated this, the bell signifying class would soon start rang. The three guys returned to their own seats. Crap. If I didn't decide quickly, then I'd lose my chance. I had to talk to one of them quickly. Yolta. Who on earth should I talk to about curses? And supposing the curse was actually real, what could I even do about it? You're still thinking about that stuff from before, aren't you? I looked up at the worried voice and saw Kana, back from morning practice, looking down at me. Hey, if something's bothering you, you can talk to me, no matter how stupid it sounds. Well, actually, I told Kana about the dream I had the night before. If anyone would believe me, it would be Kana. A curse, huh? Having heard my story, she seriously considered it. But that's odd. It's not like you watched that video, right? I nodded. I don't remember ever watching it. But these things might happen sometimes. I'll ask some other people about it. Thanks, Kana. I felt a little better. But maybe I should talk to someone else about it too. Try talking to Yolta again. When it came to the occult, who knew more than Yolta? I rushed over to his desk and told him about the dream I had the night before. That's the same as the rumors of the cursed tape, he said decisively, but with a surprised look on his face. But I never watched any such video. Yolta was also confused. Then someone must have transmitted it directly into your head. And if so, then the video was never necessary to begin with. He thought for a moment and then hit his hand on his open palm. Let's ask Nishio for a logical explanation. He stood up and made his way over to Nishio's desk. But Nishio was unlikely to give us an answer for something so unscientific. Regardless of my fears, Nishio listened seriously as I told him what happened. Let's go to the science room. That way we don't have to worry about anyone overhearing us. We decided to head to the science room at lunchtime to talk about it. The science room was quiet at lunch. The only thing we could hear was the air conditioner. Nishio then started talking. The first thing is whether you saw the cursed video or not. Being that you don't remember watching it, you might have seen it mixed in with some other tapes, or perhaps you did see it but didn't watch it. What does that mean? Yolta was confused. Nishio vaguely grinned and pointed to his own eyes. Alright, so people can see 160 degrees up and down, and 130 degrees left and right. Our eyes take in everything within that field. But our brain focuses on just what's in the center, and because it doesn't think we need what's on the peripheries, it cuts it out. For example, your brain right now thinks that my expression is necessary information, while the rest of the scenery around me isn't important, so you don't remember it. Meaning, you saw the video, but because it was on the outskirts of your vision, your brain didn't consider it necessary information. That's why you don't remember it. Was that really possible? Yolta held his head beside me. So then, why did I see it in my dream? Maybe it's like a sixth sense, or your instincts sensing danger, so they later guessed it was dangerous, and then they tried to warn you through a dream. Was that really it, though? I wasn't convinced. The problem is when someone showed it to you. Yolta's words stunned me. If I didn't know when I saw it, then my time limit was... It was like holding a bomb and not knowing when it might go off. How and when had someone managed to show me the tape? If I knew that, then I might be able to figure out how to break the curse. Stay away! Yokoi Kyoka's screams flared to life in the back of my head. Her face warped with fear and body trembling. If that was what happened after watching the cursed video, then I too would... There were still finger marks left on my right arm. Yolta spoke quietly. So then, Yokoi Kyoko really did see the cursed video then. I heard she died of a heart attack. But I have heard rumors that 1 week after you watch the cursed video, your heart will suddenly stop and you'll die. Yolta nodded at Nishio's calm words. She died just like the rumors suggest. Like she died running away from something. Silence filled the air. The only thing we could hear was the air conditioner. Then I could hear the sound of a motor mixed in. Nishio and I both moved to look for the source of the sound. It seemed to be coming from Yolta's bag. Ah! Yolta stood up from his chair and took an 8mm camera out of his bag. Sorry, I left it running. What if the cursed video played back on that camera's monitor screen? It would be within my field of vision, but it would be too small to really notice it, right? Maybe I was being a little too nervous about things related to videos. Oh yeah, let's watch this. Yolta suddenly pointed to his 8mm camera. What's that? Nishio asked suspiciously. I filmed the classroom right after Yokoi Kyoka's death. Yolta said somewhat proudly. He really filmed that? No matter how much he liked occult stuff, that was still a bit over the line. And? What about it? Nishio said next to him, the look on his face fed up. If she died because of the curse, then there might be some clue left behind at the scene of her death, right? Having said that, Yolta pressed the button on his camera. We huddled together to look at the screen. The classroom, dyed red in the sunset, reflected on the tiny LCD screen. We stared intently at the screen that was now nothing more than static. None of us said a word. We just stared at it silently. What on earth was that? Something white appeared on the screen for just a moment, but I definitely saw it. It looked like a woman, but... That's not good. Nishio was the first to break the silence. His voice trembled, which was unlike him. Yeah, Yolta said as well. Normally, he would say something sarcastic to Nishio, but... Did both of them see that white figure too? Sato, do you know a way to break the curse? Nishio suddenly asked, and then Yolta returned to his usual tone. If I did, then I would have already told you. Look, when it comes to curses, if you don't know how you were cursed, then there's nothing you can do about it. Plus, there are so many ways to create a curse. All you can do is ask the person who is cursed, you know? I looked up at the ceiling before I could stop myself. At any rate, Nishio suddenly stood up. Let's gather information first. Sato, you'll help us out, right? Of course. The occult is my specialty, Yolta answered decisively. I had no idea these two were so considerate about others. Oh yeah, I couldn't just wait around and do nothing. I should look into that cursed video. That was the only thing I could do to stay alive. But I undoubtedly didn't have much time left. Where on earth should I even begin? All right, I'll look into how to break the curse, Nishio said, looking at my troubled expression. Then I'll look for the person who showed you the video. That would be the quickest thing to do, Yolta then said. What should I do? Look for a way to break the curse. I'll look for a way to break the curse as well. Why don't you check the internet? There might be information somewhere out there about a cursed video. That advice was very Nishio-like. I borrowed a computer from the chemistry club and connected to the internet. Should I search for the words curse and video? Alright, I'll check the internet as well. I'll look for someone who knows about this sort of thing. Ah, thanks. Nishio and Yolta left the science room. The room suddenly felt huge now that I was all alone, and somewhat chilly. I focused on the computer screen, trying to shake off the anxiety I felt. Wah! Yeah! Jeez, don't scare me like that. Kana stood by the door with a perplexed look on her face. Ah, sorry. I turned back to the monitor to continue checking things. You're driving me nuts, and I came all this way to give you some juicy information, Kana said pompously. Did you uncover something? Leave it to me, Kana said proudly, as she saw the expectation written all over my face. Apparently, people who watch the video see a woman with long hair. And apparently, Yokoi-san said that she started seeing her about a week ago as well. A woman with long hair? The images flashed in my mind. The woman I'd seen for just a second on Yolta's 8mm camera. So, the curse really was real then. My head spun. We had to find a way to break this curse, quickly. Hey, are you listening? Kana's worried voice drew me back from my thoughts. Ah, sorry. At any rate, I should hear what she had to say first. And so, Yokoi-san was a member of the chemistry club. I'm pretty sure Nishio-kun and Murai-kun are too, right? Maybe you can ask them something about it. Eh? Those two knew Yokoi-san? They hadn't said a single thing about that. Does that help? Ah, of course. But the look on Kana's face seemed it might lead me to a less than desirable outcome. Thanks, Kana. She winked at me and then returned to the classroom. But still, Nishio and Murai knew Yokoi Kyoko. Why didn't they tell me that? At any rate, I should ask them about her. Look for Murai. I found Murai easily in the classroom. Murai, I want to ask you something. Come here. What? It's not something scary, is it? He exited into the hallway and I cut to the chase. So apparently you knew Yokoi Kyoko? Yokoi-san? Yeah, we were in the chemistry club together. The moment I said her name, Murai's face tightened. Did she say anything before she died? Like, about a cursed videotape or something? I don't know. I don't know anything about a cursed videotape. All the blood drained from his face. You're hiding something, aren't you? He was acting strange. You're not hiding anything, are you? I pressed him. I don't like scary stories. You know that. They said that Yokoi-san died of a heart attack. It wasn't the cursed video's fault, Murai screamed loudly. Shit. I wouldn't be able to do anything at this rate. Other students turned to look at us as they heard Murai's screams. At that moment, the bell for the start of class rang. That's enough, isn't it? Murai screamed. I sighed and walked away from him. I continued investigating after that, but I was unable to find anything helpful. And next thing I knew, school was over for the day. Nishio said he was going to check the internet at home and left. Yolta said he was going to ask some of his occult friends and left too. There were still a few people left in the classroom. Maybe they had a meeting, but I could see Kana still there as well. I went back to my seat to pack my stuff up to go home. Suddenly, I sensed a strange presence, like somebody was looking at me. I turned to look in that direction. On the other side of the window, just now I most definitely saw... Suddenly, a strange, sharp metallic sound whirled around inside my head. I grabbed my head and dropped to the ground. I screamed. Stop it! I screamed without hesitation. At that moment, the cold, metallic sound suddenly stopped, like it had never been there at all. As I gasped for air, I once again looked around. The glares of my classmates were painful. Did none of them hear it? What's wrong? Are you okay? I must have looked pale because Kana approached me, her voice full of worry. Did you hear a strange sound just now? A strange sound? She looked at me, confused. I thought I saw this weird woman walk by the window, and then there was this creepy sound. My head is still pounding. She looked at me with a mixture of worry and amazement on her face. You're probably just tired. It has been hot lately. You've probably just been watching dirty videos until late, huh? That's why you're having a dream of a woman in white while you're still awake. Jeez, you made me worry for nothing. Kana said, and then left the classroom. Hey, Kana! Ow! A light pain ran through my right arm as I lifted it to stop her. There was a dark red bruise on it, the same mark that appeared on Yokoi Kyoko before she died. The sun was already setting in the west by the time I got home. As usual, it was stinking hot. It was going to be yet another sweltering night, no doubt. My head felt kinda heavy. I collapsed onto the bed. When I closed my eyes, I remembered that woman again. Was it really just a hallucination? Even if I was mistaken, she wasn't wearing a school uniform. It was a white dress. But I wasn't confident in what I saw either. Damn it. No matter how much I thought about it, I wouldn't be able to figure it out. I sat up on the bed. I'd never get anywhere just lying around. I had to do something. Check the internet. I decided to check the internet as well for information on the cursed video. I connected right away and checked some occult-related bulletin boards. It was mostly stuff I already knew, but I somehow found 2 new pieces of information from some old logs I pulled up. The cursed video was made with psychic photography, and apparently it had something to do with a woman named Sadako. 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 That was the same as the character that appeared in my dream, huh? Was she the one who created the curse? Was it really the cursed video I saw in my dream then? The images replayed in my mind like I'd just seen them. You have been cursed and have 1 week left until you die. The only way to break the curse is to... And what was that? Maybe the real video explained what that was, or... Sweat clung to my face, despite the fact the air conditioner was on. I went to the bathroom to wash it. I splashed cold water from the tap on my face over and over. It would be nice if I could wash everything away. Before long, I calmed down again. I wiped my face with a towel and, when I looked up, Sadako. Turn around. Kami-sama! I clenched both fists and turned around. There's nobody here. But I had definitely seen Sadako in the mirror. I ran back to my room and jumped under the covers like a child. I thought that would help me escape the fear. It didn't make any logical sense. All I could do was sleep. That was the only thing that would bring me some peace. Or would it? What if I had that cursed dream again? That would be fine. Maybe I would be able to see the way to stop the curse that was cut off in my dream the night before. Saturday. I woke up in the lazy heat. I looked at the clock and saw the hand pointing at 10. I have to go to school, I thought, and jumped out of bed. But then I remembered it was the weekend. Normally, I'd dive back into bed, but I didn't have time. I had to find a way to break this curse. I wondered how Nishio and Yota were doing. Did they uncover anything yet? I turned the computer on. Maybe Nishio had sent me a message. I checked my mail right away and could barely believe my eyes. I found out how to break the curse, so here's what you have to do. My heart started beating wildly. He figured out how to break the curse? It's easy. You just have to dub the cursed video and then show it to someone else. So it's likely that the person who made you see it was trying to save themselves. What are you going to do? You'll have to subject someone else to the curse if you go through with it. You'll have to decide for yourself whether you'll do it or not. It really was easy, but also terrifying. The person who was cursed had to find another sacrifice in order to save themselves. In order to save myself, I had to curse someone else. Suddenly, my friends' faces all came to mind. Yota, Murai, Nishio, and Kana. I panicked and shook my head. At any rate, I could leave that problem until later. Right now, the first thing I had to do was get my hands on that tape. But where on earth could that video be? Yokoi Kyoko's house. Yokoi Kyoko died from the curse, so the video might be at her house. I prayed that it still was. Nishio and Murai were in the same chemistry club as her, so they should know where she lived. Call Murai. I got a hold of Murai easily when I called his house. He was apparently just about to head out to Yokoi Kyoko's wake. I wondered why they were holding the wake now, but apparently it was delayed because the police had to carry out an autopsy on her body. This was my chance. If I mixed in with the others offering their condolence at the wake, I could potentially look for the video. I met up with Murai, and then we went over to Yokoi Kyoko's house. There were flower wreaths in front of her house, as well as numerous people offering their condolences. Several of them were wearing our school's uniform. They were probably her classmates. Her face smiled back from a black picture frame. The couple holding back their tears in the Japanese-style room were no doubt her parents. My chest hurt. I didn't think too much about parental love, but seeing Yokoi Kyoko's parents like that, next thing I knew, I had superimposed my own parents on top of them. If I died, would my mum and dad? I didn't want to die. I stepped away from Murai so that nobody would see me, and then disappeared into the house through the chaos. First of all, I'd searched the second floor. I climbed the stairs, careful not to make any noise. I proceeded down the hall as the floor creaked slightly beneath my feet. Before long, I arrived at a door that said, Kyoko's room. No doubt about it, this was her room. I carefully opened the door and... Hey! I bumped right into Murai. Sorry, I'm sorry. I entered the room so suddenly that he cried out in panic. I quickly covered his mouth. Why are you in here? I lent Yokoi-san something. Here it is. Playing innocent, I pressed him further, and Murai went bright red as he answered. What was the thing he lent her? So then, why didn't he ask her parents for it? Was there some reason he had to sneak in to get it? Then... Don, don, don. We heard someone coming up the stairs. Crap! The footsteps coming up the stairs got closer. Murai and I held our breath and listened. Don, don, don. The footsteps reached just beyond the door. Please, don't come inside. Then, don, don, don. The footsteps moved away from the room. We sighed in relief. Murai! Hey! Murai! Murai was so nervous his face had turned white. Hey! What on earth are you looking for? A video. Video? What kind of video? An anime. It was an anime. Murai's eyes roamed the room restlessly and without focus. You. Dun dun dun. At that moment we heard the sound of footsteps coming down the hall again. Crap. We wouldn't be able to talk like this. Look, let's just get out of here first. Yeah. We waited until we heard the footsteps entirely disappear and then snuck out of the room. We made our way outside without anyone seeing us, somehow, and then I cornered Murai. Murai, what on earth were you looking for? I told you. An anime tape. His eyes swam and he repeated the answer. Murai! I pressed him even harder. It's got nothing to do with you, he said. Just leave it be. He screamed and then left, as though running away from me. All I could do was watch him go. When I got back to my apartment, the red light on the answering machine was flashing in the darkness. I pressed the button and a familiar voice played from the speakers. Hello, this is Sato. I was wondering what's going on. Ah, I'm in the middle of something with one of my occult friends from another school. Look, don't feel too down, okay? It was from Yota. It was a rather pointless call, but he was no doubt trying to cheer me up, in his own way. Another school, huh? Just how far had this video spread? At this rate, sooner or later I'd... At some point, I'd unconsciously pressed the speed dial button. Yes? Hello? My mother's voice on the other end of the line felt oddly nostalgic. I talked on and on into the receiver. Sunday. There was a heavy downpour from the morning. Large raindrops hit the window. I was already feeling down, so it made me feel even more depressed. We still hadn't found any useful leads. We hadn't found anything that might even hint at the cursed video and the perpetrator behind it. I started my computer. Maybe there was some new information there. Curse. Video. Sadako. Well. I should try widening my search, but of course, there wasn't anything useful anywhere. I wouldn't be able to find anything simply by using a search engine, and so I decided to check out some occult-related forums to see if they might have anything. I don't care what it is, but if you have any information about the cursed videotape, please let me know. I hoped that would be enough to get some information. Forcing my eyelids open, I looked up and, at some point, it had gotten dark. How long had I been sitting there like that for? As soon as I was discouraged, I felt hungry. Come to think of it, I hadn't eaten anything since morning. I rummaged through the fridge and grabbed something to eat. I returned to the computer again and saw an email waiting from Nishio. Maybe he had some new information. I opened it right away. I can't bear it anymore. That was all it said. What had happened? What couldn't he bear anymore? Send him an email. I started typing. Nishio, what do you mean? You can't bear it anymore. Contact me as soon as you can. Something didn't feel right. For Nishio to send me an email like this, then... I took a deep breath, fighting off the anxiety I felt, and clicked the mouse button. The heavy rain sounded oddly far away. Monday. I went to school earlier than usual, worried about Nishio's email from the night before, and waited in the classroom for him. But no matter how long I waited, he didn't show up. He was always at school by this time. Go check out the shoeboxes. Nishio's shoes were neatly lined up inside his shoebox. He was at school. So then, where was he? At any rate, I decided to go and wait in the classroom for him. But as I went up the stairs, noise suddenly started to play from the school's broadcasting speakers. Could all classes please turn the televisions in the classrooms on? That voice, was it Nishio? So then, he was in the broadcasting room? What on earth was he doing in there? Something didn't feel right. Our school had a setup to broadcast things to the televisions in the classrooms. The cursed video. The broadcasting room. My heart thumped loudly. I ran towards the broadcasting room. I flung the door open and ran inside. Nishio was just about to put a videotape in the player at that very moment. Nishio! Nishio, calm down! Nishio, calm down! I know what you're trying to do. Shut up! I was surprised at the look on his face when he turned around. His hair was a mess, his eyes slanted upwards, and that usual cool expression he always had was nowhere to be seen. I spoke to him as slowly as I could. Calm down, Nishio. Just calm down. Normally at a time like this, Nishio would be the calmest person in the room, but now he was the one acting deranged. I chose my words carefully so as not to inflame him any further. I want to help you. He glared at me with bloodshot eyes. So let's talk. That's the cursed tape, right? The moment he heard that, Nishio pushed the tape into the player. Then, the atmosphere in the room changed. Sadako was here? Consumed by fear, I ran from the room as fast as I could. I heard Nishio's screams coming from behind me, but I still didn't turn around. All I could think about was getting away from there. After I ran down the stairs, I finally turned around and looked behind me. Nishio? I was suddenly overcome with guilt. I abandoned him and ran. Making up my mind, I made my way back to the broadcasting room. Nothing appeared to be coming out of the door that was still open, and the room was silent. I summoned what little courage I had and stepped inside. What I saw was a single videotape broken into pieces, and Nishio, dead and leaning against the wall. I lost two things at once, the videotape and Nishio. I didn't want to stay in that room any longer. I ran as people started to gather nearby. I finally stopped to catch my breath once I got back to the classroom. Sadako killed Nishio because he saw the cursed tape. Who showed it to him, though? Was it the same person who showed it to Yokoi Kyoko and me? Or... Only one thing was clear. It wasn't Nishio who showed me the video. The school went into an uproar with Nishio's death. It couldn't be a coincidence that 2 students had died within the same week. After Nishio was taken away by an ambulance, the teacher summoned Yota and I, Nishio's good friends, to question us about his strange actions and if we knew anything about it. But of course, there was no way we could answer that. I didn't feel up to classes that day, so I asked the teacher if I could go home early, and he agreed. As soon as I opened my apartment door, the phone started to ring. I entered the room and picked the phone up without taking my shoes off. It was Murai. I've been thinking, but it really is strange that Yokoi-san and then Nishio-kun died one after the other. So I reckon we should go and get cleansed. Get cleansed? The video was necessary to break this curse. All we had to do was dub it and show it to someone else. That was all. But... there's no point in going. Don't say that. You should come with me. If you don't, then... I'm scared. Murai usually always gave up easily, but this time alone he was being stubborn about it. Was he really that afraid? Fine. Fine. If it would help, then I'd do anything. Maybe an ancient tradition such as this might unexpectedly help. I discussed with Murai which shrine to visit, and we agreed to meet in front of it. Murai was still at school, so he got there 20 minutes after me. You're late. Sorry, I had to fill all that stuff out to leave early. We walked beneath the shrine gate. The shrine grounds were rather large. The buildings were old and you could feel the history of the place. We walked along the stone path, and when we arrived at the main building, we went straight in. Under a grave atmosphere, the head priest started chanting in a loud voice. Creak, creak, creak. As the priest continued chanting, the wooden building creaked around us. Then it gradually started shaking more and more violently. The lights exploded with a bang. The room went pitch black, even though it was the middle of the day. Everyone in the room grabbed their heads and dropped to the floor. Suddenly, I felt a strange chill behind me. I couldn't move. When I came back to, I could hear the sounds of bugs crying and feel the heat of summer. After that, I took Murai, who was hunched over like a broken doll, home, and by the time I got back to my own apartment, the sun had already set. When I went inside, I saw I had an email waiting for me at my computer. I opened it right away. It was from Nishio. I will probably be dead by the time you read this. No, I'm probably better off dead. Otherwise, I'd regret matters for the rest of my life. I have 2 copies of the cursed tape in my possession. I'm going to take the dubbed version to school. Once I'm dead, you can dispose of the video however you like. Nishio had a video at home? If I could just get my hands on it, then I could save myself. I ran out of the house right away. Nishio's house was on the other side of the school from my apartment. I pedaled my bike as fast as I could. When I finally got there, I rushed straight for the door and rang the bell without stopping to catch my breath. I waited a moment, but there was no response. Was nobody home? But I wanted to get my hands on that video as soon as possible. I walked over to the garden from the entrance and placed my hands on the window frame. Wait by the front door. No matter how much I wanted that tape, I couldn't just break someone's window and enter their house without permission. I returned to the front door and sat down. Before long, thunder started to roar in the distance. Nobody from Nishio's family had returned home. But I had to get my hands on that video. Time to break the glass. My life was on the line here. What else could I do? That was what I told myself. I picked up a reasonably sized rock and brought it down on the glass as hard as I could. The glass shattered with a loud, piercing noise. Didn't seem like anyone heard it though. Or so I thought, but then a shrill siren rang out. A home security system. That meant the security company or the police would soon be on their way. I can't turn back now. There was no turning back now. Using a handkerchief so I didn't leave fingerprints, I opened the lock inside the window. I went inside and headed straight for Nishio's room. I'd been over to his house numerous times to hang out, so I knew the layout well. I reached his room without incident. The room, now bereft of its owner, had been left just as it was when he was alive. Tears came to my eyes as I remembered all the times we'd shared there. But there was no time to be sentimental. I had to find that cursed tape, and quickly. Nishio was a deeply cautious guy. He must have hidden it somewhere where his parents wouldn't find it. Where on earth did he hide it? Check the shelves. I looked through the videotapes lined up on his shelf. The videos seemed to speak of Nishio's personality, and each of them was neatly labelled. But after looking at them one by one, none stood out as the cursed tape. More and more time passed as I looked at them. Something was making a lot of noise outside. Maybe some people had gathered. Leave now. Seemed like they entered the house quite a bit ago. I'd wasted too much time. If I didn't leave right now, I'd be in big trouble. I gave up on the video and put the house behind me. I got back on the bike I abandoned and pedaled. I wasn't able to look behind me until I got back to my apartment. Tuesday. The phone suddenly rang in my dim room. Before long, the answering machine kicked in, and my voice started playing. I'm not home right now. Please leave a message. Beep. Get up right now. You're there, aren't you? Kana's energetic voice rang out at the same time as the dial tone, pulling me out of my half-awake state. What do you want so early in the morning? What time is it right now? I looked at the clock, and it was already past lunchtime. There are times I just want to rest, you know. If I went to school, then I'd just be reminded of Nishio's death. I know you were shocked by Nishio-kun's death, but you need to cheer up. I'll join you for lunch, so just come out, okay? She said she'd be at her usual hamburger joint and then hung up. She didn't even wait for my response. I rushed over and Kana was sitting by the window. I sat down and she looked straight at me and said, "It's about the cursed tape, isn't it?" A chill ran down my back like a piece of ice being jabbed into it. Both of them died because they watched the cursed tape, right? She waited for my answer. That's right. That's right. It was impossible to try and hide it anymore. Both Nishio and Yokoi Kyoko died because they watched the cursed tape. It sounds like a joke, right? And you? I saw it too. I can see a woman in a white dress with long hair. Kana looked down when she heard that. In complete contrast to the brightness of summer coming in through the window, a heavy air hung over the both of us. Then, Kana muttered something. Is there a way to stop it? There is. There is. I choked on something. My throat was oddly dry. You have to dub the video and show it to someone else. Then the curse will be broken, but then the person who watches it will be cursed next. Kana stared right at me with a serious expression on her face. Then, suddenly, I said something I would never have expected. Kana, will you watch it for me? Kana, will you watch it for me? What on earth was I saying? An oppressive silence filled the air. I'm just joking. I desperately searched for the right words to say. Well, actually, I was worried about what I should do. Hey. She suddenly cut me off. Supposing I saw the cursed tape, would you watch it for me? Sure. Yeah, sure. After a few seconds of silence, I answered. I could show it to Yota or something. He'd probably like that. He'd be like, "Oh, is this the infamous cursed tape?" Kana smiled sadly when she heard my answer. A silence fell between us after that, and the uncomfortable silence lingered. This is kinda like a date, isn't it? This is kinda like a date, isn't it? I tried to say something bright to lighten the oppressive atmosphere. Eh? I mean, we've known each other for a long time, but we don't often hang out alone with just the two of us, right? That's true. She smiled just a little. But then another silence enveloped us. I couldn't deal with it anymore. The silence was too much. I'm gonna go now. Okay. Kana gave a small nod. I exited the shop, and when I turned around, Kana was still sitting there, staring at the table deep in thought. What was she thinking? Time around her alone seemed to have stopped. I couldn't bear it any longer. I wrestled my eyes away from her and started walking away, following my tiny shadow. I entered a small alley, and there was a yellow barricade in front of a manhole undergoing construction. I glanced inside it as I passed by. Something sparkled deep inside it. Look inside. I looked inside. At that moment, it suddenly felt like I was falling deep into the abyss of the earth. A well. That's right. It was just like what I saw in that nightmare. Gashi! My feet hit something. I desperately tore the arms off and then ran away as fast as I could. I flung my apartment door open and ran inside. I locked the door behind me and then tried to put the chain lock on, but My trembling hands betrayed me. I knew it would be pointless against Sadako anyway, but... I finally got the chain on the third go, and then I ran to my room. How many days were left? Wednesday. The phone rang in my dim room. I slowly got up and walked over to it. I had less and less willpower to pick up the phone these days. When I finally reached my hand out for it, it stopped ringing the moment before I picked it up. But then I realized, thanks to that it had gone over to the answering machine. Who was it? The message started to play. You saw the video last Thursday. You're going to die this Thursday. If you want to live, show a dubbed video to someone. For a moment, I was at a loss for words. Maybe they had sucked on some helium gas or something, but I couldn't tell whose voice it was. But they knew what my time limit was. It was the person who showed me the cursed video. Thursday night. So it really was amongst those videos I borrowed. But who did I borrow it from? Dub it and show it to someone, huh? But I didn't have the original video on hand to dub it. I had to get my hands on that first. I turned my computer on and dug through various occult websites on the net. It didn't matter how small it was, I just needed some information. Did anyone happen to have that cursed tape? But as expected, there was no new information about it. At some point, the sky started to lighten and both my mind and body were tired, so I threw myself down on the bed. I'd been searching for so long, so why couldn't I find anything? As I stared at the dim ceiling, I soon fell asleep. How long did I sleep? White noise coming from the TV suddenly woke me up. And strangely, I was incredibly hungry. I got up from the bed and went over to the fridge in the kitchen. It was empty. Of course it was. I hadn't been shopping for a while. I sighed and closed the door. Zut. Suddenly I heard something crawling on the floor behind me. All the hairs on my body stood on end. I broke out in a cold sweat that dripped down my forehead. No way. Run! Overwhelming fear gripped me, and I moved for the front door, yet my legs wouldn't listen to me. Run! I have to get out of here! There was no way something as ridiculous as this could happen. Who was it? Who showed me the video? Finally, the sound of footsteps reached the kitchen entrance. Sadako. At that moment, my heart gave one large thump. And then I was wrapped in darkness.